Oh, it's a gentle journey, worthy of the wait, like the wild goose flying with its only mate, an all-enduring spirit on the whiskey trail.
That is sensational, Gordon Dundas. I'm going to come to you in just a second, but I'm going to go to somebody even more special than you, Gordon. I'm going to go to the person that's actually singing that song, Mr. Dave Arcari. Welcome to the Christmas special.
Hey Gordon, how you doing, man?
Very well, Dave. Now, for two series of this podcast, we've not had any really music to talk about or to play, but you've very kindly said we can play Whisky Trail. Now, I know that in that song there's a little reference to 1833 in Glengoyne. What's the story?
Well, actually, it's quite a long story, but to try and make a long story or a short story longer than it maybe should be, it started way back when I started taking some Glengoyne across in the US tours and stuff and helped try to spread the gospel.
Well, can I just stop you there, Dave? Because that's the last time I met you. You were heading to Nashville with Glengoyne in your back pocket, and I thought that's wonderful, heading to bourbon country. It'd be easy to slip into bourbon, but I think like your music, you take the best of America and make a bit of put Scottishness in there. And is it the same with your whiskey?
Absolutely, we've got to get them off the bourbon because actually there's nothing wrong with it. It just wouldn't be it would have to be the last thing in the house before I drink it. I much prefer Scotch.
So you're heading to America with Glengoyne?
Yes, and there were two aims of that, as I say, just to try and let people know that this is Scotch. Jameson's isn't Scotch. It's all right, I quite like it, but it's not Scotch. And the other thing that always sort of bugged me when I was over there, at shows, people would always want to buy me drink. Now, who am I to complain about that? Yeah. But they would want to do, they'd call Jameson Scotch, and then they'd want to do it as shots. Now, I'm not a big fan of drinking shots. If I'm drinking spirit, it's going to be whiskey, and I want to sip it and enjoy it, not just down the hatch, unless it's something that's bogging. Right. So that was my mission, and I took the stuff round about. I think it was about a 8,000-mile tour that year in the States. So it wasn't only Nashville; it was all over, Midwest, East Coast, everywhere, southern states.
And Dave, you had two tours this year lined up.
Two lined up for this year in the States, and both had to be knocked in the head. So all the visa costs and everything, not to mention all the 6 months of planning last year, all down the tubes. But hey ho, that's the way it goes. There's good times and there's frustrating times.
Oh, Dave, I know. And just a little bit about yourself, Dave, for the listeners of Whisky Unscripted. You're a big whiskey man, but a big blues man as well.
Well, I play and write all my own stuff. I mean, I do some updated versions of old, sort of pre-war Delta blues things, but by and large, it's my own stuff. It's all blues, Americana influenced, and a lot of slide guitar. Whisky Trail is turned out to be a banjo tune, and that song really came about because way back I've got a song called Whiskey in My Blood, and
love it.
Everybody was kind of keen that we did something with that, but it doesn't really promote sensible drinking. So I went away and I thought I'd like to write a song that wasn't so much about Glengoyne, but maybe more accurately reflected the brand values behind the brand and the whiskey. So the whole song really, although it doesn't mention Glengoyne, as you pointed out, it mentions 1833, it mentions the wild goose, the whole thing's unhurried and taken care of, and independence, and all the things that you embody and I embody as a musician. So there's a lot of like-mindedness in there.
I love that, Dave. Dave, we want to speak more, and we'd love to do that in the new year, but this is the Christmas special. You will be having a dram or two over Christmas. Let's just say, if I gave you three of any dram that you could get your hands on, what will Dave Arcari be sipping over the next few weeks?
Well, number one on my list would be one that I think is probably impossible, because I don't think you do the Glengoyne 15-year-old anymore. So I guess it would have to be a 12 or an 18.
Right.
I'd probably err on the side of the 12, actually. 12 and 15. 15 was my very favourite.
So that's that bourbon influences sherry casks, but there's also some bourbon barrel influence in those two whiskies that you've mentioned, the 12 and 15. That's what just tips the balance.
It does, and it kind of just, it's got a wee bit more of an edge than the 10, but once you start getting up beyond 18 years, for me, personally, I'm happy to drink it, but it isn't the 12 and 15 and moving up to the 18, but 15 was a brilliant balance of flavours for me.
Fantastic.
So
keep an eye, Dave. You never know what might happen in the future. So we'll give you the 15. Okay, Dram 2 of 3.
Dram 2 would be what is probably my current favourite, and it's maybe just because it's new, and it would be Smokehead's Rum Rebel.
Ah, yes.
Now that is a magnificent dram. I love it.
It's absolutely taste of Scotland, taste of Islay, and a little bit of that Caribbean in there as well.
And coming a close second to that, my third would be another Smokehead, and it would be the Sherry Bomb, which was my favourite until they launched Rum Rebel.
It's fantastic. It is fantastic. Smokehead it's just building and building, isn't it? A great following, and I imagine the circles you move in, Dave. It says everything about that sort of lifestyle.
We're quite well aligned. We're quite well aligned. I mean, that's a whole story that we'll hopefully sometime in the future get to chat about. We'll keep that in the bag for the future.
Dave, we've got so many plans, and next year you'll be definitely featuring them. Just for our listeners, where can we catch some of your music? Not obviously live, sadly, at the moment, but where can we point them to go and listen to some more?
Well, it's all on Apple Music and Spotify and all the streaming and download services, but the hub of all my music and links and everything in video is my own website, which is www.davearcari.com.
Dave, thank you very much. Thanks for using the music. Enjoy the whiskies, and a Merry Christmas to you, Dave. All the best!
Thanks, Gordon. Same to you guys.
On the whiskey trail, coasting ahead. On the whiskey trail.
Right.
What do you think of that intro, Gordon?
Oh, fantastic. What a man.
That's not bad whiskies he's chosen. And I didn't say just because we're IMD, Ian McLeod, I didn't force him to choose those whiskies, but that's not a bad lineup.
It's not a bad lineup at all. Not a bad lineup at all.
Gordon,
how are you, sir?
Very well, Gordon. This is our Christmas special, the last Whisky Unscripted of the year. This is episode 12 of this season, and this is also episode 28 of Whisky Unscripted.
It's not.
Did you know that?
That is like, I mean, do you think people binge listen to it like they binge watch box sets? Do you think people... I've not heard of particularly that many people binge listening hours on end of Whisky Unscripted, if I'm honest.
Well, I have to correct you there. I forget his name, though. We did have someone who was binge listening a couple of weeks ago. He contacted Podbean, where the show is hosted, and if you go to Podbean, the website, you can actually interact with us there. And I do apologise, I've not got it open, but he did binge listen the entire first series. Well done!
Well done, I say. Well done, sir.
Gordon, we've got quite a busy show. Hopefully we'll have people pop up and wish us Happy Christmas. But in the last week or two, Gordon, I've been doing, and so have you, lots of online tastings. And can I ask you again, how was China?
China was great. No, It's just great to see the enthusiasm for our whiskey there is all over the place. But just unbelievable in terms of the demand for it and things. I mean, we have to be very careful of China in terms of managing our supply in there. But no, fantastic, really, really good.
And what's good about that, Gordon, is the time difference is in your favour. Whereas I had to do America last week, the time difference isn't in the favour.
And I did leave you to do that on your own. I'm afraid, but I think. I'll do the next one.
Well, listen. The reason I bring it up because there has been quite a few questions from the online tastings. Even last night I was doing one, and I got that perennial question, water and whiskey. Should you do it? And I just thought this is maybe a good time. Christmas is coming up. People will be a bit more free time, maybe even buying a whiskey. And I've got a few questions. So maybe I'll be a bit of Christmas myth busting, Gordon, before we even do anything. What about that?
Love to myth. I love to bust. I love to myth a few busts.
Well, bust. The water. Yeah. I got a question about that last night.
What was the question?
Should you not add water?
What add water?
Yeah.
Well, even now when I go to do tastings around the world and I speak to, whiskey connoisseurs, there's people who will never add water, and there's people that will add water, and there's people that will add water without tasting it, and there's a whole range of different. My view would be always taste a whiskey first. If you like it, run with it, and also if you're at a whiskey tasting and the person says add water, try adding water. They're probably gonna show you how a whiskey will change if that is the case. So, higher strength whiskies you should certainly consider adding water. Even at 40%, not many people. If you're new to whiskey, 40% alcohol's strong. If you're hardened drinkers like us, 60% alcohol is. Yes. So it's like all these things in life, and absolutely you should consider adding water. Not even water, add ice if it's hot. Add whatever you want to whiskey. Just drink it and enjoy it, and all of those preconceptions, and let's just get rid of them. Let's just
I did
enjoy
have a question.
it.
You covered it last week though, but not everybody's listening to every second of the show. But another question from last night was about glassware. We're all drinking at the Glencairn glass, and we had Paul Davison from the Glencairn company, and that's wonderful glasses, but they said, do you have to drink it out of a Glencairn glass?
No.
I have other glasses. Can I do that?
Yes. If it's a whiskey that you enjoy it, you don't need to, you're not particularly trying. The Glencairn glass is designed to be it's called the nosing glass. It's a nosing glass. It's a glass to help accentuate the flavours of nosing, which is great. But once you've bought a whiskey and you've nosed it and you know it, just relax and enjoy it. And, you don't have to drink it out of a Glencairn glass either. I drink my whiskey out of I was going to say a pint glass there, Gordon, but I better not. Responsible drinking and all that.
Of course.
Just out of a nice rocks glass. Absolutely.
Well, another myth busting, but another question from the last couple of weeks of doing these online tastings, and can I just say, we're continuing them to do them in the new year. I don't think this is going to go away, Gordon. So
no, we are back with season 3.
Yes, we are. But even these online tastings with the Glengoyne, we're doing that online tastings. But
pay attention, Gordon. Yeah,
we will be back. But another question we got was just the difference. People like to know where Scotch whisky sits within the American whiskies and the Irish whiskies. And I know we've covered it in previous episodes. If you're listening, go back and try and find that. But even last night, another question about what's the difference.
Well, it's like all whiskies. They're all different for a reason. So whether that's in Scotland, whether that's through using peat, whether that's through the location, whether that's through the stills that design a different type of spirit, or is that through the casks, there's a whole range of difference within Scotland. So even pigeonholing Scottish whisky as one style is impossible to say. I think the other thing would be within Scotland you've got blends and all the other types of varieties as well. Irish whiskey, generally lighter style, but not always. Different categories, so they have single pot still, which is actually used with just with barley, not malted barley. So they actually use that was historically to get around taxation issues. Great whiskies, but generally renowned for being a bit lighter. But not always triple distilled. The biggest myth of Irish whiskey is always triple distilled. Not the case. Yeah. And American whiskey, we obviously spoken to the Van Winkles about American whiskey, but bourbon made predominantly with corn, and probably 70% corn, generally 15% rye, 15% malted barley. That's the major difference. The other thing, distilled differently, but also matured only in one type of cask, which is the cask which we then use for ex-bourbon. So bourbon probably is the only whiskey in the world, because it always sits in the same cask, that I would compare whiskey with by age.
Ah, right.
Because bourbon is made, so if you compare a 6-year-old bourbon Maker's Mark with a 6-year-old, let's say a Wild Turkey, you are comparing like with like because they're both bourbons. They've both been matured in rack houses, and they've both been matured in a cask of the same size. So there you're getting a direct correlation between a 6-year-old and a 6-year-old. In Scotland, if you compare two 10-year-old whiskies, some may have been matured in bigger casks, some may have been matured in smaller casks. So, there's a whole range of different factors in Scotland. And if you compare a 10-year-old whiskey from, let's say, India, I don't think they even have 10-year-old whiskies in India because there wouldn't be any whiskey left in the cask because of the temperature, and a 10-year-old whiskey with a Scotch or a 10-year-old with something else, you can't compare them because the starting point is not the same and the journey to 10 years is not the same.
Great.
So that would be my view.
That's a fantastic answer. And on the last part of this, I thought you'd be a great person to answer this. I was asked last week about the markets for Scotch whisky around the world. What are the main ones?
Well, I mean, there's obviously the one which you spent a lot of time in the middle of the night speaking to, which is, of course, the
East-West.
Yeah, America. Quite a big diverse part of the world, America. But it's a big market for sure. And if we can get rid of these tariffs this year coming, that would be great. If we can get rid of this virus, that would be even better. And then really we're looking at, if you look at the really big ones, we're looking at Taiwan is still an important market, the only market in the world where single malt outsells blends, which is really, really interesting. And then we're looking at something a bit like probably China, of course, and then other markets, around the world, outside those, the others are a little bit smaller, but, France is still a big market for blends. In fact, in France, they drink more Scotch whisky in a month. No, wait a minute. I need to get this fact right. More Scotch whisky drunk in a month than cognac is drunk in a year.
Right. Wow.
So there you go. So yes, there's still some big markets out there, and there's other markets that will grow if you think of other parts of the world. So yeah, but the key point is here, we've talked about growing markets in Scotch for many years, and there are only so many countries in the world. So there is a point where we have to also grow existing markets as well, and that is a really big point, and that is to attracting new consumers and being very open and getting rid of preconceptions about our product and just getting people to drink it and enjoy it, either with food, mix it, just drink it and enjoy it. And people are tending towards drinking less these days, but drinking higher quality, which is great.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You just mentioned food there, Gordon. I'd like to go on. I did actually drop into my very good friend Diego, who is across in Spain. I was just interested. We talk about Spain to Speyside with Tamdhu, and indeed, I'm going to have a Tamdhu 15 as my little Christmas dram during the course of the show, which is, I think you've drank it before in the show. I haven't, so I'm going to have a little dram of Tamdhu 15. And I just thought, we talk about this the Spanish side of things, and it's talking about the sherry cask, but I just wanted to know what they ate at Christmas and what kind of whiskies maybe they would taste. So here, have a listen to this. So Diego, just very briefly outline what's a typical Christmas in your part of Spain.
Ooh, that's pretty much dependent on each family. There's usually some seafood. In Catalonia, there's a tradition of having a big, massive bowl of soup with some ground meat, with a massive meatball in the soup, and then you kind of spread that among the different plates and so on. And then the next day, you make cannelloni out of the leftover soup. That's probably the most typical date of Catalan Christmas tradition. Alongside, the usual seafood components and potentially some roasted turkey or something like that.
So you still have turkey appear somewhere in the dinner, but it's not the main component?
No, some families are. I mean, we're talking big gatherings. Probably not this year due to the situation. When you have over the lines of 15 people at the same table, massive bowl of soup, and then some turkey is not going to left anybody hungry or wanting. And then obviously the desserts, the usual sweets for Christmas, and coffee, and it's usually a 5-hour long meal at the very least. So
5 hours. That was now in those 5 hours, or the 5 hours after it, Diego. There must be some drams in there. What will Diego Borras be having over the Christmas period? Give us your 3 drams.
well, if we have any seafood involved, I'll probably have some lightly medium peated whiskey to go with it during the meal. And then for dessert, if we have some sweet marzipan-y Christmas pudding-esque dessert, depending on the household, I would go for a heavily sherried one, probably a Tamdhu 15. And then with the coffee and potentially some, walnuts and almonds and dried nuts, something a little bit over the lines of the Glengoyne 18.
Sounds absolutely wonderful. I would love to join you, I have to say. Diego, can I wish your friends and your family and indeed yourself a very happy Christmas and New Year when it comes, and we'll hopefully be speaking to you in the new year about a surprise. Well, I don't know. I know it's not a surprise, but a new venture. Let's just put it. Can we say that?
Yeah, it's a project that has been ongoing for a while. So some people have been approached to give some feedback, and hopefully, fingers crossed and knock on all the wood available, it will be ready to go for the new year.
Great. That's something to look forward to. Diego Borras, Happy Christmas!
Absolutely. Happy Christmas, Gordon. Sanchez.
So that's Spain. Gordon, could you illuminate what you might have with the full Christmas dinner? What whiskies would go well? If you do have the seafood, I think a lightly peated one is a nice idea to start us off.
I mean, if I'm honest, I think we generally have some seafood to kick it off, and if I would have a little bit of a lighter peated, not a big peaty, probably a little cheeky Bowmore would be nice in there.
Yes.
Cheeky Bowmore 12 would be lovely with some smoked salmon to kick the whole thing off. I think I'd probably leave the turkey in the main course to some wine, I think. And then power straight into the big sherry bombs with the Christmas pudding.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you wouldn't be far off with my Tamdhu 15 there.
No, I would not be far off with the Tamdhu 15.
Sorry, I interrupted with that interview there. I never asked what you would be sampling during the Whisky Unscripted Christmas special.
Well, funnily enough, I'll tell you what I'm drinking. I'm doing a little tasting ce soir. And I'm just looking at the whiskies. There's a couple of whiskies that I don't know what they are. So I'm currently sampling something completely blind. It's very intriguing. It's very fruity. It's not one of ours.
Was it one of ours? Okay.
It's very nice. I have no idea what it is. It'll be interesting to find out what it will be. Quite strong, quite rounded. Not particularly Christmassy, if I'm honest, but I think it's got a bit of age to it. But no, very, very nice.
Right.
But I have no idea what it is. So there we go.
There you go. Blind tasting. The Tamdhu 15 is lovely, 46%.
Absolutely lovely.
Yep,
lots of sherry cask. Yeah,
Gordon, I cannot not have a Christmas special without looking back at some of the names that we've had on in Series 2. And I'm going to put together a small montage after we record this. So I'm going to let people into a secret. I've not done it yet, but it will be a fantastic montage. But
you're great at montages. I've seen your montages.
I love a montage. I absolutely love them. There's no Wimbledon without a montage at the end. Or World Cup without a montage.
Sports personality of the year. Love a montage.
So there must be departments. Deep beneath the bowels of the BBC, the montage department, which I would love to get access to. But to inspire me, Gordon, I've got a list of the people that we've spoke to over the last 12 episodes. I hope I haven't missed anyone out. Could you just give me, it's a little thing we do with the Christmas cracker tastings we do, which is more of the fun Christmas tastings I've been conducting. And in that, we have a cocktail, which is a highball. And I went onto
highball.
Onto a website with a New York socialite for cocktail conversations. And one of the first things you do is don't invite people, or introduce people. Like saying, hello, Gordon Dallas, this is Gordon Dallas, Gordon Dallas, this is Gordon Dallas, and walk away. You start the introduction with a fact. And then that's how you introduce people. So I was going to give you these people's name. Could you try and give me a fact about them?
Does it have to be truthful?
No. Absolutely
Okay,
not,
good.
Gordon.
Never let the truth get in the way of it.
One of our first guests, Gordon, was Susan Morrison of the Scottish Whisky Experience.
Susan Morrison. I'll give you a couple of facts about Susan Morrison. Obviously, she's been at the Scottish Whisky Experience for many years. She's now the chief executive, I think.
That's right. From day one.
And she's nothing to do with the supermarkets.
No, that's a fantastic fact. Ewan Mitchell, a friend from Arden.
Ewan Mitchell. So Ewan, I've known for a long time. Great. I'm really looking forward to catching up with a whiskey with him and the Arran guys because they're fantastic. Ewan cut his teeth in Campbelltown and worked for Springbank for many years, and made that leap from Springbank to work for Arran. And Ewan is he's a good friend of mine. So yeah, he's a Campbelltown sort of.
Yes.
Probably where he cut his teeth most in the industry.
That was a great episode. I really enjoyed that Arden episode there. Mark and Kate Watt, our independent bottlers.
Well, Mark used to work for a company called Duncan Taylor for a long time, and then he also worked in Campbelltown for William Cadenheads. And Kate also worked for Springbank and also worked for Glenfarclas for a long time. Speaks very good French, does Kate. And they've started their own business, obviously Watt Whisky, married, and they live in Campbelltown.
Oh, right.
There's another.
Every time I hear the word Glenfarclas, I always think of the Dramathon, which is the race through Speyside, which I hope will happen again this year in October. And you must do it if you're listening and you're fit enough to run a half marathon. And it starts at Glenfarclas. And I remember begging the barman to give me a wee dram before we started, looking around. And everyone else was applying Vaseline to various parts of their body and doing press-ups. And I'm like, just give me a dram, please. And I think he did. So then we had Katie Muggeridge, and that was talking about the Rosebank 30.
Yes. So Katie is our brand manager for Glengoyne and for Rosebank, but originally started working for Ian MacLeod as a tour guide at Glengoyne. Now, a lot of people that we employ now within the wider industry, it's all started at as a tour guide at Glengoyne. So she's a sort of Milngavie girl, as it was, worked at there initially, sort of, I guess, at university or something like that, and now has become a brand manager in the business. And that's a very much an Ian MacLeod thing in terms of bringing people through the business and getting people to retain staff, which I think is a really important part. So that's, and I work pretty closely with Katie. Just been on a long call with her earlier today.
Great. And of course that was a great episode. If you want to go back and hear talk about the release of the global release of the Rosebank 30, I'll do the next one. It was just Ellen, Vivian and Laura, our distillery ambassadors, and I was on a tasting with Laura last night, who's just done that, Gordon. She has been a tour guide and she's now moving up the ranks of Ian MacLeod, which I only found out last night. So
I heard that as well.
Did you?
Fantastic. Laura Toonsey. She's going to work with her sister, I think.
Yes, travel retail, which is
Travel
great.
Retail,
I love
which
it.
is an area that we hope will come back next year.
And Vivian and Ellen, their mother and daughter, they've been cooking it on the online tastings, doing very, very well there, and they are huge fans of the distillery and really on board with the whole online stuff. And then, Gordon, Preston Van Winkle, take it away.
So, Preston Van Winkle is obviously part of the famous Van Winkle brand. His dad, Julian Van Winkle, I think he has three sisters who are, they're not twins, they're triplets. I think he has three triplets that are sisters of, I think that's right. Lives in Louisville, Kentucky, and is a huge advocate of American whiskey, and came on and talked about, just how the explosion in premium American whiskey has really come up. Preston is a very good friend of mine. I haven't seen him for a long time, but I've hung out with him in Kentucky a few times, and quite a lot of times actually. And generally, Van Winkle's involved, which is great because it's great whiskey.
Great. Very quickly, Alex Bruce, you had him on talking about Ardnamurchan.
Yes, so Alex Bruce, obviously, I'm just sort of, he has been involved in Adelphi for a long time, and was at the sort of coalface of building the new Ardnamurchan distillery, which has just released its first release and a single cask in the last couple of months. And Alex and I have a couple of mutual friends outside the industry. And he's a great guy. Another, like everybody in this industry, the people are what make this industry, and that's what we want to showcase on Whisky Unscripted. It's about the people as well.
It was a great interview. And another gentleman, and I have to say, gentleman, was another very good friend who I met with you a couple of years ago up in Speyside, Tatsuya Minagawa.
Tatsuya, yes. Tatsuya is, he really is a bit of a legend of this industry. Having worked with him for 2 years pretty much, where I was heading up the Scotch whiskies of a particular company, he was heading up the Japanese whiskies of Suntory, and we were working for the same company effectively, which was Suntory. We created and I think we mentioned this in the interview, but we did a Scotland v Japan tasting concept, which just captured the imagination, and we came on to Rocky music, and it was all very, very funny. But Tatsuya obviously now running the Highlander Inn, and let's just hope these kind of places are fully open and people can return to Speyside.
Another surprise,
as soon as possible.
Of course. Another surprise voice was Joanna Lumley, who there's many facts about Joanna, but one fact is that this February 2021, there should be in the UK anyway a travel programme featuring Joanna Lumley going round the UK. She was meant to be going round the Far East, but they changed plans and she went round some of her favourite places in the United Kingdom, one of which is Glengoyne Distillery, and I took Joanna Lumley round, so I don't know if I'll make the cut or not, Gordon. There could be a floor with my face on it.
Do you know where she was born?
I do not know where the Lumley was born.
She was born in Kashmir, in India.
Oh, right, of course, right.
So she's, there you go. I've just looked that up on the internet. You'd never have known that.
I'll not hang about too much. You just heard from our friend Diego Borras. All I would say, he's got a big project on next year, talking about food pairing, but we'll come back to that in a few.
Is that about nuts?
That could be about nuts, Gordon, but that was a secret. But let's come back to that later on. Lauren Oliver we had on the show, Insider's Guide to the Mashing.
Absolutely, and Lauren is yet another Glengoyne, I don't know, tour guide, I guess, who's moved into a different part of the business. We've had Emma Newton, who was on the first series, who became a part of the blending team. We now have Lauren, who's part of the production. We have people like Katie and Laura, who are part of the marketing side of things. So it's great to see that we can bring the youth and the amazing talent that we have at the distilleries, whether that be Edinburgh Gin or Glengoyne, through to work in the wider industry. Fantastic.
She loves her job. Another man that loves his job, and if you go anywhere in the world and you go to a whisky festival, I don't know if there's maybe one or two or three of these guys, but Scott Adamson he just seems to be everywhere.
Yep. Last time I saw him, he had a dodgy moustache on. Scott's a great guy. Worked for White Mackay for a couple of years, went back to Tomatin, and has become a real advocate for them. Does a great job. Well respected individual, and really passionate about the wider whiskey world. I mean, loves Tomatin, but loves great whiskey from anywhere. And lives up in Allness, I think, or lives up in north of Inverness. Great guy. And saying all these names just makes me want to catch up with everybody and have a proper whiskey drink. Which technically is called a dram. In a bar, as things used to be.
I was just about to interrupt you. I was doing an online tasting with Scott with the Dram Busters down in Dumfries.
You did, yes.
And Scott was on first with Tomatin, and then I went on with our Danielle, and I just made reference to a book, and I held it up to the camera, and it was just a throwaway line. It wouldn't surprise you, Gordon, that about 2 days later, Scott emailed me and said, "What was the book? I think I might want to buy it." Adam Rogers, Proof, The Science of Booze, it was called. But just shows you attention to detail, loves his whiskey, wants to learn more. I'll do it. The next one was our brand home manager for Glengoyne, Karen Cornfield, who was on talking about the difficulties in trying to steer a distillery through these changing waters. And that was a great episode, and that's a tough job. trying to run any tourist attraction during this pandemic.
Absolutely, and I think what's great about it is Karen has an amazing background in this, and that's what's really helped us through this. She was with the National Trust for a long time, and I think what's really, really good about that is that from that you really understand the sort of wider implications of how you deliver great brand home service. And I think what's really fantastic is that she's come on board. She's really, really developed our business, and she's great. So no, it's great to get her on board. That was fantastic.
That was very good, and we can trust her. That was a really bad joke. Then we had finally almost.
That is a bad joke. Yeah.
Two more. It was, and I tried to contact Diane Alton. We had her on from Chaz, which is a charity here in Scotland for children with life-limiting illnesses. And we tried to raise a little bit of money online there with them. So she came on and talked about our fundraising with Fred Macaulay, who, if you're not from Scotland, is a comedian of some repute in England and in Scotland, and also a ex-rugby legend, Andy Nicol. So that was a little episode when we talked about raising money for the wonderful charity that is Chaz. And finally, I'll leave you with the last word. The man that's been on twice, our insider's guide to the stills. He got married this year as well, so I thought best leave the last word with Jason.
Jason.
Newly married.
Newly married, PR, star, Stillman. Jason, top man. Saw him the last time I was at Glengoyne. Newly married, and loves working at Glengoyne. I mean, he's permanently on social media talking about Glengoyne. He really is, and he's loves the wider whiskey world as well. And always a joy to see his cheeky face and his bushy beard.
Well, listen, that's not a bad. I hope I've not missed them out. So what an amount of people we get through, and here it's just a little flavour of those names that we've given you some facts for. Here is the montage.
After Whiskey Fest Chicago, just those nights hanging out at Delilah's with the whole gang, and the post event kind of unofficial after parties at Whiskey Fest and Whiskey Live, and those things were always just a lot of fun. Just getting to hang out with people from around the industry that you don't get to see outside of those events. It's always fun. There's obviously some competition. The real competition is with the suits and the bankers and the lawyers and stuff. But the people, boots on the ground folks, tend to get along industry wide just fine.
I always telling people between whiskey from Japan and Scottish whiskey is equivalent of champagne and cover. Good champagne, good cover, both tasty, made from same ingredients, more or less same method, just like that. So even if you look at only Scottish whiskey, one from Lafroig Distillery and one from Macallan, taste totally different. Even we call Scottish whiskey. So maybe no point to compare between whiskey from Japan and whiskey from Scotland, just your own preference.
Well, one of the great things about drinking whiskey is people want to share great whiskies with people, their friends, their community almost. So they will bring lots of other different whiskies to the island, and you'll see these pop-up tastings happening all over the place as well. And it's a real good feeling on the island. Yeah, we're going to try and recreate some of that.
I mean, just miscommunication, I guess.
The difference between the word for cask and the word for crazy is pretty much the same. Yeah. It just depends on how you say it. It's like foo or foo. And so often I would say I'm crazy instead of a cask. So
I mainly just... the jargon, I think, was always the big one, because it's like everything has this weird name that has no translation. My go-to was always just say it in a really French accent and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would always work.
Oh, it was like New Make Spirit. It was something like I used to just make stuff up all the time. It would change every tour because I never really knew what it was. So I'd just be like, distillat. They're very understanding of your attempts.
Yeah, see, with the Canadian French as well, It's so different, and I didn't realise. I literally thought I'd forgotten how to speak French. I remember the first tour I had with Canadian French, and I genuinely thought my brain just wasn't working. I was like, I don't know how to do this, and you just kind of have to adapt and try it.
We're all quite passionate about our whiskey, aren't we? So
yes,
I think that comes across.
I think I sort of just fell into this job really because I was like freshly 18, and at the time my sister was working here. And she said to me, they're hiring, they're looking for students who speak a language. So I thought, well, I might as well give it a go. And at this point, my only experience with whiskey had really been Jack and Coke. So I had no idea what I was doing. But it's sort of this place where you just immediately get really into it. Like, I don't know many of my friends who also, had part-time jobs and things over uni. It was bar work or restaurants or cafes, and it was really just a matter of getting a paycheck. And I think I always felt like the odd one out because I actually loved my job. And it's something that, Glengoyne aside, whiskey industry in general is very, very friendly, and it just brings a lot of people together and you get to meet so many folk, and it's just a really exciting job for an 18-year-old to have. And that sort of novelty hasn't really worn off over the past 3-4 years.
It's a properly diverse team, though. There's a really nice mix of age groups and a really nice mix of gender. I would say we're pretty even, girls and guys, and the age ranges from 18 to recently, I think it was, I don't mean to be rude about our lovely colleague Janet, but she was in octogenarian, was it octogenarian, is that the word? 80s?
Yeah,
she was in
I
her
think
80s. So everything in between. So I think that gives a really nice feel to the place.
Yeah. It is lovely, and you kind of come back from work and you've made best friends with a 70-year-old, and it's lovely. As an 18-year-old, you're getting all points of view. It's great.
And then when I was coming the end of university, we had to go off and do a placement in a foreign country, and I managed to blag my way into a job with Remy Martin Cognac in their marketing department on the Champs-Élysées in Paris.
Oh, tough gig.
There were worse places. Although I do remember that there was no air conditioning in this lovely old building, and it was an absolutely blisteringly hot summer. But that really got me into the kind of marketing of, I suppose, what you describe as luxury products or luxury brands. And I came back to Scotland really wanting to get stuck into the whiskey industry.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely helped. I think the popularity of Scotch whisky generally grew, so people were more conscious of it. I think the malts were going, there was more of an interest in the malts and the diversity of the malts, and that then drew people back to, the provenance of where Scotch whisky from, Scotland, whereabout in Scotland. And then I think, Scotland has such stunning landscape, and the distilleries are all sitting in that landscape, that I think it ticked lots of boxes for lots of tourists coming to the country. So yeah, I think it's gradually grown, through all the information, and it's much easier to get hold of information about whiskey now with all the digital stuff. But the rise of the popularity of Scotch, and then the fact that Scotland is just a brilliant country to visit, has just all helped with moving visitors around the country to visit different distilleries.
I think what we kind of came to terms with pretty early on was that what the visitor centre is great for is bringing in new people to not just the brand, but to whiskey as a whole. People driving past, we're halfway between Inverness and Aviemore, great kind of tourist destination like yourselves down near Glasgow. So we get a lot of passing people that stop in and are introduced to whiskey through us. Yeah. And I think what we realised throughout lockdown was that we're going to struggle to really do that, because there is this element of an echo chamber. You're speaking to people that are already interested in whiskey, and to an extent your brand. So things like the Lockdown Whiskey Festival were great for bringing people in. Very good, yeah. We did 2 of those with massive outturns. But I think what we've been trying to do over the last few months, rather than do the sort of visitor centre experience, is kind of go back to what we did very, very well a few years ago, which was be in touch with the whiskey community, the people that are already drinking the product, and kind of add value to that. So the sessions that we've been doing, similar to yourselves on the podcast here, it's not a weekly Tomatin or Glengoyne advert. It's it's a conversation about whiskey with people that love whiskey, and maybe people that you wouldn't always, as a consumer, get to engage with. So I've been lucky to speak to coopers and bartenders and whiskey club organisers and things like that. So great to dive behind the scenes and see the cogs that make the whiskey machine turn.
As a young girl, you don't really drink whiskey because it's always a sherry for the lady, a glass of white wine for the lady, you know. But I think it was actually at Dundee Rep. I was doing Hedda Gabler up in Dundee Rep, and the great, now dead, actor-manager there, called Robert Robertson. That was me zipping up my front in case people thought I was chronic indigestion. He said what you ought to have after we've done rehearsals is just a small glass of whiskey. And I said, really? He said, yes, he used to put a drop of water in it, just to open it. Just a drop. Do they still do that?
Yes, of course they do.
Just a tiny drop, not watering it down. And it was so delicious, and it made me feel it was fine. I didn't drink a lot. I never got drunk because I hate getting drunk. But the taste of that whiskey, I thought, this is a gorgeous drink.
Can you believe that's 12 episodes, Gordon?
I can't believe it's 28.
I know, 20.
That's like, if we were doing, that's like, we've done over half a year. If you did one a week, that's amazing. That is over half a year of, and if you actually just, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, although, and I know you can probably see all this, but although it's called Whiskey Unscripted, I think people can see the amount of effort and scripting that does actually go into this.
That's right. I've got a army of
and
mice.
I think if we prepare, each episode takes a good 2 days to prepare, and I think when you hear how we deliver it, it's in that uniquely way that people think it's unscripted, but then go, no, it definitely is unscripted.
Last episode, we did an advent calendar and we got to 12 whiskies. Here they go. We had Bullet, we had Ardnamurchan, Redbreast, Tamdhu 12, Paul John, Kilhoman with Glenmorangie Cake. We had the Six Isles with Glengoyne Legacy 2, Pig's Nose, Hibiki, and the Smokehead Sherry Bomb. Just to complete the advent calendar, let's try and see if we can put another 12 whiskies that we might want to, sample over the next fortnight. Just to complete our advent calendar.
Did we put a Tamdhu 15 in there?
We didn't.
Oh, you're drinking it. It's very
Tamdhu
Christmassy.
12. Okay, Tamdhu 15 is in there at number 13.
I'm also going to go for something a little bit different. I'm going to go for a whiskey that I actually really like. It's grown on me now more than it has done. Is Laphroaig Lore. That was, for want of a better word, they brought that into their range a couple of years ago, and it was all about them. It really unique cast brought together. It's a really great whiskey, actually. I think it's bottled at 48 from what I can remember. Peated, obviously, so a great Laphroaig, which a bit of nice richness in there, which is great.
It's fine. I thought I did, but I must have taken it back out there. I did have my Macmira whiskey, which I've forgotten, but I haven't written in the first section, so I'm going to put it into number 15, the Swedish single malt, which shows a sort of real growth in the Scandinavian market for producing whiskey now. Finland are doing it, Sweden are doing it. It's really becoming quite an important part of their industry.
Nice.
Hello Gordons, Christmas greetings from Finland. My name is Juhis Virkkula and I write whiskey blog called Finn Whisky. I bet most of you have not heard that we make whiskey in Finland. Or maybe noticed last month when Terembeli Distillery won the Best Worldwide Whiskey Producer of the Year title in IWSC competition. Terembeli is the oldest ongoing distillery in Finland, but of course, in Scottish scale it's very young distillery as they started distilling in 2002. We Finns are also very proud of our rye. Rye bread is an essential part of our meals, and nowadays we have two very promising distilleries that produce rye whiskey, Kyrö Distillery Company and Helsinki Distilling Company. Many of you may know Kyrö from their gin, but I really recommend trying their Kyrö rye malt whiskey if you get a chance. It should be available in UK and Germany. That will be my choice of dram this Christmas. So, if you want to know more about Finnish whiskey industry, I recommend you to follow Finn Whisky in Instagram and Twitter. One more thing. We have seen Mr. Dallas in live events in his sauna. Did you know that in Finland there's 5.5 million people and 3.2 million saunas? In fact, I am recording this at the sauna. Merry Christmas from Finland to all the listeners of Whisky Unscripted. Hear you soon.
I'm liking that. Very good. I'm going to go for a whiskey which I've never tasted yet, but it's actually produced by a friend of mine, Dan Woolley, in Australia. And the only reason I really need to get a bottle of it when I can. And he's produced a whiskey out there called Highwayman. And it's a really dark sort of whiskey, bottled in very small batches. They don't have a lot of it. It's from Lord Byron Distillery, so I would imagine sort of Byron Bay area. And it's been just totally flown off the shelf out in Australia. But I would love to try it. I've heard the reviews are fabulous, and dark colour. Just a really different sort of craft distillation of a whiskey I'd love to try. So I'm going to put that on my list.
That's a very good one, Gordon. That's these ones left of centre. You just wouldn't think about. That is very interesting. I am number 17. I was going to keep this for the last, but it's in my thoughts. And you just go what's in your thoughts. It's unscripted, Gordon, and that was the cask of the moment that you and Robbie and your panel of experts chose at one of the live whiskey Facebook nights in November, I think it was, wasn't it? Cask 38 you chose, which was a Glengoyne, distilled in 2005 at 53.6%, and it was matured entirely in a port pipe.
Decadent would be the word I would describe that as. Beautiful whiskey, chosen by the public. It was between that and the Madeira cask, I think, and the port cask came through in the end. Decadent, really, really lovely whiskey, and sold out really, really quickly, but a great one if you have any to get open at Christmas time for sure. Definitely that sort of very beautifully structured, but has that sort of dryness and that berries of the port. Really, really lovely whiskey.
So that's 17, the Glengoyne port cask, and at 18, what have we got?
Well, I thought I'd go for an 18-year-old at 18, and it is my favourite whiskey that we produce from Glengoyne. It is the Glengoyne 18. I love the Glengoyne 18-year-old. I think it's one of the finest 18-year-olds out there because of the way that the balance we get between the casks and the sherry casks and the beautiful Glengoyne style. It really is a liquid apple strudel, very Christmassy as well. At
number 19, coming in, the Whisky Unscripted Advent Calendar. I think I'd like to raise a glass because I've got very good memories of doing a little gig, I could call it, for Gordon and MacPhail, who were hosting the 2018 Spirit of Speyside Festival, and they held it at Ben Romach, and they brought me up and I did the opening dinner sort of chat, guest speaker, and they gave me a tour in the afternoon of Ben Romach, and I maybe had a little bit too much of it than I should have done, Gordon, but I'll put up the Ben Romach, even just a 10-year-old, lovely, just slightly peated as well, really nice, lovely distillery. Keith up there, the manager, great guy. Had a good chat with him all night, so I'll have just like whiskey should, Gordon, evokes great memories as well as great taste.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Ben Romach is a great people, great whiskey. I'm going to go back to a place that I lived many years ago, and I'm going to pick a whiskey which is, I think, one of the finest examples of New World, for want of a better word. I'm not a big fan of the word New World, but a Kavalan.
Yes.
Kavalan has some beautiful sherry casks, but I just drank a whiskey of theirs called simply Kavalan Sherry Oak. Beautiful whiskey. They use great quality casks. Produced in just south of Taipei, about an hour and a half south of Taipei on the east coast. Kavalan's a big distillery, and was run by a gentleman for many years called Ian Chang, who's just joined Karazawa Distilleries in Japan. Congratulations to him, good friend of mine. Great whiskey, and great to see these New World distilleries producing whiskies that can fit into our top 24 whiskies of the world.
Now, they caused quite a ripple. Did they not win a big award, World Whisky of the Year, with one?
They have. So I mean, and that's what really 15 odd years ago really transformed Suntory in Japan and Japanese whiskey and took it to the next level. And there's some great quality whiskies from around the world out there as well, for sure.
That's great. I would like just to do a whiskey again. It's good memories. Balblair, and the Balblair, if I could choose one, the Balblair 90, which I do like.
90 years old?
It's not 90. I think it was distilled in 1990. That's how they do it. But that would be if I had a bottle of that. And I remember one of the blue badge guides that comes round the distillery. He's called Ronnie Berry. If he's listening, how are you doing, Ronnie? And I mentioned to him about a certain whisky festival. The Ian MacLeod stall is mobbed, and so is the Balblair stall. And he said, and I said, 90 is lovely, because I know Robbie Hughes, our distillery manager, worked there for a while. And Ronnie said, I think I've got some in my car. So I went away down to the car park, got a sample, brought it back, and I had a wee drink that night. So lovely people in the world of whisky, as you mentioned, and that's a lovely sherry whisky distilled in 1990. So that'd be my 21st.
So we're on 22 now.
We're on 22.
Oh, I'm beginning to struggle, if I'm honest. But I'm 22. I'm going for two particular styles of whiskey for my final. I'm going to go for a whiskey which is hard to find these days, but for me just is a whiskey that I've always thoroughly enjoyed. If anybody can find it and can get me a bottle, please. It was a Auchentoshan, and it came out about it was fully wine matured, and it was strong, but it was a wine matured Auchentoshan. It wasn't that old, and it was it was like nearly 60%, but it was just red wine matured Auchentoshan. Absolutely stunning whiskey. One of the best Auchentoshans I'd ever tried. It wasn't particularly expensive. It was a limited release, but it was an absolutely sensational whiskey. So if anybody can find the one that I mean, I'm right in for it.
That's right.
As it were.
Are you a man that finishes the Advents in 24 or 25? This is a discussion. Some have a lovely big chocolate for the 25th, and some just finish in 24. What's your history of Advent calendars?
Limited. Normally I've eaten all the chocolates by the second.
Let's go to 25, which means I'll do 23. I just think we should. I'm just trying to think of ones that I've personally had a taste of, and I really like the people from the Cotswold Distillery. We tasted it in one of the episodes a few episodes ago, and I had a lovely Cotswolds 46% single malt, and again English single malt, which a lot of people think what, but it's a fine whiskey, and they're doing very well. And I just thought a wee shout for an English whiskey, our close cousins south of the border.
Absolutely.
So there's one for the Cotswolds, just so you can try a lovely English single malt. So you've got two more, 24 and 25.
Right, I think we should both do a 25. I'm going to do a 24. I'm going for the teapot dram.
In fact,
it is Christmas in a glass. It is European oak. It is dark. It is rich. It is perfect for this time of year. Excellent. You cannot have Christmas without a teapot dram.
Teapot dram, the Glengoyne legendary teapot dram. And I was telling people about the story last night online, just how the teapot used to be the receptacle for mixing all the malts that the guys couldn't drink when they were on shift, when they got 3 whiskies a day as part of their paying conditions. A bit like ourselves today, Gordon, because I'm onto a wee teapot now myself. And the 25th, I'm going to choose the one that Katie Muggeridge come on and chatted about in one of the episodes that you made reference to, is the Rosebank 30-year-old. What a way that would be to wake up on Christmas morning.
And about as far away from the teapot dram as you can get in terms of style, and that's fantastic. Completely
triple distillation in bourbon barrels.
Yep, no, definitely.
Rosebank 30. Oh, I didn't steal your thunder there, Gordon.
No, you haven't stolen my thunder. Not at all. I'm gonna go for a bit of a dream dram. I'm gonna go for a whiskey that I drank about 15 or 16 years ago, and I'm remembering the whole experience. And I think I've mentioned this before. It was a Balblair 38. Balblair's had 2 mentions in this. A Balblair 38 was all about the great whiskey, the moment, the time, the place. It was an exceptional whiskey. It is one of the finest whiskey experiences I've had, was drinking that at that particular moment in time. And I think it really sums up just, it was a very convivial, lots of chat and people and fun, and the whiskey was just the most amazing compliment to it. And so I would like to Sample that whiskey again. What a whiskey.
Well, that's us finish our Advent calendar. Well done, Gordon. Done. What a I will have to do that again next year. That's absolutely wonderful.
I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas from everybody here at Tamdhu. It's Sandy, the distillery manager, and I'm going to be sitting on Christmas Day enjoying, I think it'll be a Tamdhu Batch Strength 5 that I'll be having at some point. I hope that everybody has a smashing Christmas, and here's hoping that 2021 is better for all of us. Take care and stay safe, folks. Bye.
I will officially say we'll be back.
Yes, we'll be back. We will be back. We're really excited about it. We're going to be back next year with Series 3, Season 3, the return of the unscripted. We love doing it. People still listen to us, and we'll do it as much as people still want to listen to it. I think it's probably fair.
That's pretty fair.
We can't start A to Z's again now.
No. Don't.
That was a one-hit wonder.
We might be a wee bit more out and about. You never know what we might be able to achieve in the new year.
Well, I think if we could be out and about a bit more, and even we will look at maybe doing it live on YouTube and things as well. We thought about doing that this year, but we'd rather do that when we're both in the same room. I think it makes it a lot easier. Yeah. So, yes, we will be back. So
as well, Gordon, when we did the Tamdhu tasting last week, which was a great tasting of the travel retail whiskies, the Heathrow single cask and the Edinburgh Airport single cask, which have been sitting there gathering dust when the airports have been virtually closed. We've managed to get them back, and they're now available. I don't know if they're probably all sold out now, but if you really want a great single cask whiskey, unbelievable. But on that night,
definitely.
You mentioned about the Speyside Festival is coming back, and you were proven right.
I know, that was a complete... I'd had heard of that earlier that day, but the Speyside Festival is coming back, and it's great to hear that. Let's hope that we can actually deliver it and be there and do tours and all the usual things. I still think it'll be... things will still be a little bit restricted by that point, but let's hope that we're in a semblance of normality by then. That would be absolutely great, and the only opportunity for anybody to come and see Tamdhu, and I think the tickets go on sale on the website, not our website, the Spirit of Speyside website, in about March.
Yeah, I've had emails already about that, Gordon. After you mentioned it that night, I've had emails saying, can you reserve? I can't. It's not ours. It's the Spirit of Speyside's festivals. Gordon, I thought to finish the show, a little finale, is I have been doing some Christmas evenings with companies that cannot get together for a Christmas party. And we've had it's more fun. So, it's just after a tough year, they get a whiskey kit, and usually in the whiskey kit there's a ginger ale to make a highball. Then there's some Ian Burnett chocolates. We do some whiskey and chocolate pairing, and there's some whiskey from Glengoyne. So it's just a lovely evening, but there's also a bit of fun going on there. So I just thought I would like to challenge you, as we've started the podcasts in the past with challenges. I'd like to finish 2020 with a Christmas cracker Gordon Dundas challenge. Are you up for it?
Oh, why is it always my challenge? Why can't I should think up one for you, but okay.
It starts very easy. It's very simple. You'll get this, but this is really for people that are not hugely familiar with whiskey. So older whiskey, it's just yes or no. They've got cards, yes or no cards. You hold it up to your camera. So you just say yes or no. Older whiskey is always darker in colour.
No.
Correct. The age in the bottle means that all the whiskey in that bottle must be that age.
No.
Correct. There's a rule about the size of a cask. It can be too big. Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Is the correct answer. That's right.
Yes.
The colour...
700 litres is
700
the
litres. Yeah. Our biggest is the port pipes, I think, in Glengoyne.
About 600.
All the colour in any Scotch whisky, malt whisky, blended whisky, comes from the cask alone. Nothing else. And I'm talking about any Scotch whisky.
Not true.
Correct, not true.
You are allowed to use E150 caramel colour.
Now we start to move off the road and start to go a little bit erratic.
Okay.
Quirk and Scottish law. Remember, this is a Christmas cracker night. The only place you can distill spirits at home without a licence is on the Isle of Barra in the Hebrides. Yes or no?
It's got to be yes.
I've got him. I just made it up, Gordon. Absolutely made that one right up. And then,
nice.
So that's one to beat. I've a visual one. Is this a Scotch whisky? And I've put a Santa beard over a green labelled bottle, and the date dates from 1608. And the question is it a Scotch whisky or not?
Not a Scotch at 1608.
Correct. Bushmills. That's their on their
Is
bottle.
it Bushmills?
Bushmills, 1608 on their. I think it was basically a farm. And then we have the famous Glens. We like Glengoyne. I've got a whisky here that I've covered half the name. Dronach is the last part. Is it a Glen or is it a Ben?
It's a Glen.
And then I have another one. I've got Romach, which I've mentioned already. Is it a Ben or is it a Glen?
It's a Ben.
It's a Ben, Romach. I do other famous Glens and famous Bens, but that's by the by. And the final challenge, Gordon, to finish this off, it's a Christmas cracker challenge. I went through 10 Christmas crackers. I'll just pick the best. Got the worst jokes I could and blanked out one of the words. So, why has Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, bought mistletoe this year? And try and guess the answer. And the gag is because he's tired of being in the what market?
In the single market.
Yes! You see where I'm going with this now?
Yes, I do.
Rudolph. Yeah. Rudolph's favourite pop star is Beyonce.
Beyonce.
You're getting it, Gordon. Come on. This is the finale of the whole year of Whisky Unscripted. Finishing with some Christmas gags. Gordon and Dash just has to guess the words that I've missed out here. What's a dog's favourite carol? Blank, the herald angels sing.
Bark, the herald angels sing.
He's got that one right. And my final question. Who is a Christmas tree's favourite singer? Blank, Springsteen.
Spruce.
Yes! And on that one, Gordon, I'll not even do why did the choir have to cancel the carol concert, the tinselitis. I'll not even go there. But that is the Christmas cracker in a nutshell. Just a wee flavour of what we've been doing online, having a laugh and having some whiskey. Surely that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. The key thing is here, everybody, just enjoy whiskey. And that's what we do doing this. We hope you enjoy it. Have a great and peaceful holiday period to everybody. And we will see you next year with the return. Whisky Unscripted, the return.
Great. Gordon Dadas, thank you very much. Let's laser grass and wish you great health and prosperity for 2021, everyone.
Stand ahead
Slanjava
on the whiskey trail. Oh, stand ahead on the whiskey trail.